Welcome back to DR Sports Talking Tactics, everyone. This might be the first time that Arsenal have left me going into this show with a performance and result that I'm not particularly happy with. And Chelsea as well haven't left Matisse with anything because they didn't play. So there you go, Matisse.
It's a great weekend.
Just don't play. Don't play your games.
If we don't play, we cannot lose.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm feeling right now.
I mean, why not? Why not?
It's a brilliant method to the madness.
We have a lot to talk about. Yes, Arsenal did drop points. Yes, there is a real story around that. We're going to say that till later in the show because they are playing Man City on the Wednesday. We have to look ahead to that. There's plenty of other football that went on.
Yeah.
Newcastle, Tottenham, what a game, or what a 20-25 minutes especially, in particular.
Yeah.
Brighton, Man United, I think, threw up a really interesting game where I think there are a lot to takeaways. Congrats to Man United making it to the FA Cup final to face Man City. That would be a great tie as well. No doubt we'll probably preview that actually on the channel. Yeah. Looking ahead at how that's going to be interesting in that final. But yeah, lots to talk about. We're going to start with Newcastle, Tottenham. You watched it?
This is something that we can both celebrate together. This is a great moment.
Just enjoy this one.
21 minutes, 5-0 down. And then they changed the system. I mean, I was appalled. Absolutely appalled. I enjoyed it. I celebrated each goal, and then of course I had to change the timer and change the scoreboard, and then another goal will go in. We'll take a look at their setup because to play a back four, and this is something that Conte's been avoiding all season long, and he's been criticised for it, and I still criticise him for the game against AC Milan for not changing it and making it more attack-minded in a situation that you can't lose from because you're already going out and you need that goal, Sheffield United, etc. But to go to Newcastle, one of the best teams in the league, and to go with that four, in particular the players selected from Stellini, is criminal. It's not maybe, as Abby was saying on the show this morning, it's not a situation where you can say, okay, because you've gone to that formation now, you should concede 5 goals in 21 minutes. But it plays a part. It contributes. You don't play Perisic in a flat back four against a very lively Murphy who is always going to stretch the pitch, is always going to make those runs, is always going to put the hard yards in against Perisic, who's a wing-back. Started off as a winger, became a wing-back. He definitely doesn't play in a flat forward, full-back. And even Pedro Porro was a wing-back at Sporting Lisbon, and then he's into that flat four as well. So it was a poor setup. I didn't like it from the off for Tottenham in terms of the way that they were going to play in this game. And Newcastle just came out the blocks flying, and it became a situation where when the goals were going in, they were almost laughing at Tottenham, smiling at Tottenham, because they couldn't quite believe the way that the goals were just going in, whether it's Willock's incredible outside the right boot pass, playing like Kevin De Bruyne, playing like Luka Modric, or it's Alexander Isak getting his hat-trick before he's even reached half-time, and he's smiling away in shock. Murphy taking shots from distance, Lloris is not diving. It was just an absolutely it was one of the worst, if not the worst, opening 25 minutes I've ever seen to a football match in this
Easily
league.
one of the worst performances I've ever seen. Yeah. Ever.
Unbelievable.
Forget the season, forget over the weekend, forget one of the worst performances I've ever seen. We were busy doing other stuff, so I kind of had an eye on it, and then I went back and watched sort of the goals and was just trying to get a feel for the game, and I was sitting there thinking, so you go with the back four. Now let me say that to all the people who were professing that Spurs should go with this back four, I don't think this performance is evidence that they were wrong. You just don't do it away to Newcastle, one of the best teams in the league.
Having not played it before.
Having never played it at all, with 2 wing backs and a guy in Eric Dyer who's only ever really played in a back four, I mean, once or twice, in terms of the amount of seasons he's been at Tottenham. He normally plays in the middle of a back three, or when they did play a back four, Pochettino, he's playing in midfield. Yeah. And then dropping into
the back three.
So you basically got 3 personnel out of 4 there that are not suited to this system.
And then an incredibly rash Romeo as well, just to make things even better.
Yeah, he's been rubbish this year. Now, I just think Stellini, I think, clearly wanted to match them man for man, a little marking around the pitch. He wanted to make sure that in Sarr, Skip and Højbjerg, you see what he's trying to do. He's trying to match Willock, Guimaraes and Longstaff. But Newcastle showed so much quality to bypass that with some of their long balls. We're going to start by looking at the Isaac goal, for example. No, sorry, we'll start with the Joelinton goal. Where, again, in this situation, they've got their midfield in Sarr, Skip and Højbjerg looking to block the lines into Guimaraes, Willock and Longstaff, but they just go, okay, yeah, cool. And they just plays this unbelievable raking pass into Joelinton. Yeah. I heard some Tottenham fans saying, it's not everyone. I hate when people do this whole thing where they go, Arsenal fans are saying this, and no, it's just a couple who've said it, blah, blah. So I'm not putting this on all Tottenham fans, but some people said Newcastle actually weren't even that good. It's just that Spurs were that bad. I think you're taking so much away from Newcastle by saying that. They were unbelievable. The execution on that pass from Cher, but then I also want to show this one, the Isaac goal.
From Willock.
Oh,
I mean, it's just outstanding.
It is, and you can't do it justice on a tactical pad because it's the outside of the ball, it's the swing, it's the way it's high and wide enough from Romero, but it goes in behind Dyer and Isaac's in. They showed so much individual quality as well as collective quality, Newcastle, and that pass from Willock is the kind of thing, you know, when people go, oh, if Messi had done that, if De Bruyne had done that.
That's one of those.
100%. I had to, when I watched it, I thought, how am I not seeing this all over my timeline? This pass,
I think because people couldn't keep up. People couldn't keep up.
That's true.
I didn't even see it was him. Yeah. Like when someone plays a pass like that in the Newcastle team, you immediately assume it's Bruno Guimaraes.
Yeah,
I just immediately assume that must be Bruno Guimaraes. But because the goals were going in so quickly, as a fan of football, as much as you want to appreciate each goal and you want to analyse it and you want to talk about it, it all happened so fast, you couldn't keep up. You know, after you finish reacting to one goal, another goal would go in, and then another goal, and then another goal, and it's like you just head loss.
Yeah.
And credit to the Newcastle players, they kept their foot on Tottenham's necks. They did not at any point think they were going to get complacent, even though the goals started to dry up after Sarr comes off, the midfielder, and on comes Sanchez, and they go to that back three, and from that moment it was a more competitive game. I still think Newcastle could have won this game by more goals. I think they could have got a 7 and 8 and 9. There was some chances that were missed. Wilson comes on, gets a goal as well. It could have been a record scoreline, but at least it was more competitive from Tottenham in terms of the way that they were trying to look as well. And obviously they get their goal. But in terms of analysing the game, it's almost like Newcastle, again, at home. It was like that Anfield kind of vibe. But now this is St James's Park. And they understood the magnitude of this game. When they came in, they knew if they beat Tottenham, top four, I'm not saying top four is done. When you look at the fixture list, that Tottenham have to play Aston Villa, they have to play Liverpool, they have to play Manchester United this week. Tottenham's games are extremely difficult, and Newcastle have a 6-point lead plus a game in hand. So they knew going into this game, this is a potential top four decider, and they played like it. Even when they were 5-1 up, you know, they were closing down, pressing, making sure there was no time and space for those midfielders. Everybody was putting in a shift. And then when you see that Almiron can come off the bench, Callum Wilson can come off the bench, double change, St Maximin's not even fit. And this is before they've even started to add a little bit more money into the midfield, into the left back. This is a very serious team. Very serious team. They've been serious all season.
They are. Well, they had that little wobble, didn't they? Where
but they couldn't
it wasn't even bad. Yeah, basically they were just
struggling
lacking goals. But Isaac returning's had a massive impact.
Good.
Yeah, he's just he oozes class. He's just one of those players you love watching.
Yeah.
You know, his numbers might at the end of the season not be any better than Callum Wilson's, but my word, you watch him and you think he's just magic. He's the kind of player, use the word enchanted. Like you just love to watch him play. On Tottenham, we were last week saying, how can you sack Conte and then keep everything else Conte? You know, everything else is his staff. Everyone he hired, everything there was in place before. What does sacking Conte do? And it's funny because you'd think, well, you can't do anything worse than that. There's kind of no worse position than the manager who isn't doing a good job. Then you've got, sacking the main guy and then letting everything else that was in place do the job. But then if you're going to go one worse, it's almost that crux and group of people going, we'll reinvent what we're trying to do and go back for. Listen, Bournemouth at home, other games, I think they've got the personnel. Longley in for Dyer maybe, Davis in at left back. They've got some personnel that can do a lot better with this potential system, whatever. I just think in a game against Newcastle where they're going to have to do a lot of defending anyway, I think this was the one game where they didn't need to do this. So I'm really surprised from that perspective. How bad can it get for Tottenham? How far can they fall? Because they have still got, as you mentioned, some tough games.
Yeah.
And I think that they're in fifth, and because of what they did earlier in the season, they've kind of always hung on to fifth. But I think there's a real chance they start to fall away even more.
I mean, they shouldn't have beaten Brighton at home in that game. There was a lot of dodgy refereeing decisions.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I think for me, Tottenham could fall below Liverpool.
So they're 2 points ahead of Villa.
Yeah, Villa.
But the same games played.
Yeah, Villa, Liverpool and Brighton I would be looking at as teams that could all finish above them, which would take them
Liverpool 3 points behind with a game in hand.
Yeah.
And Brighton are 4 points behind with 2. They could fall out of Europe.
Yeah,
legitimately fall out of Europe.
I think they could finish 8th. You talk about Stellini being potentially sacked as interim manager, replaced by interim manager Ryan Mason. That's the latest report. I mean, if that's the plan from Levy, then I think Europe is easily. When you take a look at the teams they got coming up, they got Liverpool they got Manchester United on Thursday, Liverpool on Sunday. They could lose these games.
Yeah.
They could easily lose both these games. So they could fall out. And I think it's been coming. I haven't been impressed with them all season. They've been playing poorly, getting results, and somehow being in a top 4 race. They don't deserve to be in a top 4 race. They deserve to be in a Conference League race.
It does all catch up with you in a season. We were watching them when they were sitting 3rd, 4th for a lot of this season, and people were going. You had a lot of pundits saying, yeah, but what did Tottenham expect? What are they hoping for? And Tottenham fans, credit to them, were saying this isn't sustainable. Like, the way we're playing, our position in the table, it's false. Like, yes, we've had some results. Yes, we've got great players like Kane that bail us out at times, but we're not a good team. And there's a very real chance, you mentioned that now they do fall to 8th if everyone else kind of keeps going on the trajectory they're going on. And that would be a much fairer reflection of how Tottenham have played across this.
Their best player, Kane,
campaign.
What motivation does he really have? I mean, he gets the goal to make it 6-1. He didn't even celebrate with his teammates. Like, he just jogged back. Obviously,
cool. I've got my goal. I'm reminding you all once again that I'm better than all this.
that guy. But he's been linked with Manchester United this morning. So I don't really see. I don't see hope for them, to be honest. I really don't.
Let's talk about Man United, Brighton. Look, it wasn't a great game, but I thought it was really fascinating because I always love these ties where you've got a juggernaut of a football club, Manchester United, against a team, with all due respect to Brighton, have really punched above what people thought they'd do this season. They've been brilliant. I love De Zerbi. I love that Brighton team, some of the players they've got. And so you go into this game going, okay, well, how's it going to pan out? Like, are Brighton going to rise to the occasion and play their football? And so often we see these kind of ties, and ultimately the bigger team that has the experience in that scenario of an FA Cup semi-final at Wembley tend to kind of get over the line. And I think you saw that with Man United and Newcastle. Look how Newcastle played before the final, look how they played since. But actually in and around that, Man United were able to kind of raise it for that game. So I'm not surprised Man United went through, even if it was on penalties and it was just the one missed by March. But Brighton was still very impressive, and it's the way they play out the back that's so good.
It's not surprising to see that Brighton dominated possession. They were the only team to go to Etihad and have more possession. Pep came out recently and praised De Zerbi's build-up play. We know their box build-up play. You know, I feel like I know it at the back of my hand now, seeing it at Stamford Bridge, seeing it every single week. The 2 centre-backs, the 2 midfielders just ahead of them, whether that's Gross and Caicedo, or it's McAllister and Caicedo. In this instance, Gross playing at right back. They always try to funnel it through the middle and try to make that box do all the build-up and then release it forward to the players higher up. I think where Manchester United got this right is they didn't try to match Brighton from a footballing perspective. They knew that Brighton were a better football team in terms of the way that they keep the ball. But the performance in particular of Wan-Bissaka, I thought was the difference between Brighton winning the game and it going to penalties, because Matoma is a very tricky customer. And I've seen a lot of criticism from Matoma after this game. I don't think there should be criticism on Matoma. I think there should be praise for Wan-Bissaka.
I agree.
Wan-Bissaka was absolutely outstanding. Outstanding. He only let him go 1 or 2 times. And the 1 or 2 times he did let him go, Matoma created 2 big opportunities. Now, the first one is a pullback where Welbeck is not in the box. He should have been in the box. He was too busy ball watching and involved in build-up play. He should have got himself into the box. Maybe if that's Ferguson, it's 1-0 to Brighton. And then the other opportunity came from a long shot as well, from their new star boy, where is he, that scored against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, their new number 10, I think it was Enciso.
Oh, Enciso,
He took the shot just wide. Outside of that, Matoma was plugging away. Really, and you could see as the game went on, he kept going and going and going. There was some few heavy touches here and there, but he was out of breath. He was tired. Wan-Bissaka was outstanding. Going forward, even he was really good. Set up a chance for Anthony. I was really impressed with him. Defensively, we know 1v1 he can be a real bully, and he did bully Matoma. He won the ball. He didn't let him loose. But even going forward, he looked really good on going forward as well, which has been a criticism of his.
Yeah, you're really right to praise Man United. In fact, let's do it now. One of the things I wanted to say, because you're right, Wan-Bissaka, brilliant. When I look at Man United's responses from big results and bad results this season, they have tended to always have a good response under Ten Hag when you think, wow, this is a bad one. Brentford 4-0 at the very, very beginning of the season. They did bounce back by beating Liverpool 2-1. When they lost to Manchester Derby 6-3, they went to Everton and won 2-1. Never an easy place to go. It doesn't matter what form they're in. Then they lose 3-1 Aston Villa, Unai Emery's first game, but they go and get a last-minute winner against Fulham just before the World Cup. When they get smashed by Liverpool 7-0, they go and beat Betis. And I've included Betis in the only Europa League game here because you do want to progress. At that point, it's the knockouts. It matters. 4-1, job done, nice and easy. They lose 2-0 against Newcastle. Not battering in terms of scoreline, but if you watch the match, absolute battering. They beat Brentford. Not easy to beat Brentford kind of wherever because they can be so condensed as a team, but they played really well, 1-1-0. And then after the 3-0 defeat to Sevilla, they just found a way to get themselves to the FA Cup final. They do have a really good response in them under Ten Hag Man United.
Yeah, they do. And, you know, it could have been out of 2 competitions in 1 week. We saw that game against Sevilla. They were absolutely awful. De Gea playing out from the back, Maguire.
Yeah.
They just completely capitulated to real European heritage in Sevilla. That's their competition. Yeah. So to respond against Brighton, listen, it wasn't glamorous. I watched the game.
No.
For some people, it was boring at times. I think the first half, tactically, I was very intrigued of how it was all going to pan out, and it was a joy to watch McAllister and Caicedo. Caicedo was outrageously good. He got man of the match in the end. Press resistant, brilliant ball manipulation.
He's unbelievable.
Somebody said on Twitter, and I completely agreed with them, it's like when you watch Caicedo and McAllister in midfield for Brighton, it's like they always have L1 pressed on their controller, and they just never let it go.
Right,
the ball
FIFA
just
term.
sticks.
Explain to FIFA players.
If you don't know about that, right, that is literally just, the ball is stuck to you. It's like glue. It's messy, right? It's dribbling. It's ball control. And in tight spaces, they just didn't let it go. And the fact that Caicedo was able to go and play in that way for 120 minutes, he just never dropped his intensity levels. So you can see why big clubs have been looking at him for a big price. I think Brighton, the biggest issue they're going to have going into next season is actually, and I think you put out a video on this as well, keeping these two. Because I think Matoma, you can sell that. Listen, one more season when you're, you know. But I think those two in particular, from what I'm seeing in the rumours, they are pivotal. They're quality players, and I think World Cup winner and a 21-year-old who's literally been taking the league by storm this season. I don't think, with all the big clubs looking for midfielders, me, yourself, Man United, Liverpool, I don't think they'll be able to keep those two.
I agree, and I did a video on my channel basically just saying, like, look, how sad is it that they could get Champions League football? They definitely, like, they're going to get Europa League football, and it feels like their players and their fates are already at other clubs, kind of regardless of how the season ends. Hell, they could have won the FA Cup, okay, they didn't. And it just felt like a lot of players' futures were already being decided for them. But look, on a positive for them, I just wanted to touch on the way they play out the back. Now, when we recreate goals here, obviously try and find the exact the details in the goals. With this, I'm just trying to annotate and illustrate a little bit of some of the things I see, because what I noticed with Brighton, and it's slightly different to Arsenal, maybe Man City to a degree, but slightly different from Arsenal that I watch all the time. Arsenal, when they play out the back, I think you know what they're going to do. It's just very hard to stop. You know that Zinchenko's going to come into midfield. You know that White will drop in and they'll make a back three. And they've kind of got triangles all over the pitch that, listen, you can press it if you want, but if you don't, then you've got to deal with Martinelli, Saka, Jesus running at you, whatever. So teams aren't really always sure whether to go and tackle Arsenal in that way. With Brighton, I think what's so brilliant about them is, I was watching them in this game thinking, they play out the back in lots of different ways. There's not one route they want to take. And when you've got a box, you don't have maybe the natural triangles forming, it means that the players have to move around and be fluid themselves. So I've tried to recreate, well, I say recreate, or try to show, this was one pass I did see in the game. We've got here Sanchez on the ball. Now, sometimes what you might get is Martial coming to press the goalkeeper because they want to force him to go long or force him to make a pass. When Webster drops or it splits, Gross just peeled off the wing to just receive it into that space and become an inverted player, and bam, they've played through that first line of press and they're off. But there's another moment, and again, this wasn't exactly a moment I just saw iterations of this kind of thing where they'll go, okay, cool, we'll just play it to Caicedo anyway. Eriksen might be on him, it might be Caicedo, doesn't matter, don't focus on the Man United players. The point is, they might have a player on them, but Brighton are just happy to go, yeah, we'll do it anyway. Yeah. Because like you said,
that's a mismatch. That is a complete mismatch, those two. Right?
Yeah, it would be, to be fair. It would be, to be fair. You'd think maybe Casemiro, but again, it's just more the point that they'll just go, cool, you want to give it into me? Fine, I'll knock it off. Third man run and we'll play around you. They are so happy to go, we'll just have it into feet. Doesn't matter, we'll just give it and go, we don't care because we'll play around you.
The fact that I can remember that build-up play move that you're talking about just goes to show how good they were in build-up play, because I actually remember that move and I thought, wow, like this. And it's the same thing that happened at Stamford Bridge a couple of weeks ago when I was watching them. I was thinking to myself, we're pressing like teams, I think somebody on Twitter calls it zone 14. I don't know what zone 14 actually means, but
I think it's this.
This is that area, yeah.
Is
Zone 14.
14.
I didn't know. I don't know why it's called Zone 14, but maybe there's some sort of reason. I'll Google it later.
Well, I think they square off all the different areas of a pitch,
that just ends up to be Zone 14. Yeah. And teams are very aware and are very, like, they know they have to press that area and suffocate that area. The problem is they don't care. You can suffocate it. Go and try and press us in these zones, in the Zone 14. We're still going to play it in there, and then. It's duels, it's 1v1s, and Casemiro's on a yellow card from earlier, so he can't get too included. And Eriksen defensively has always been shaky, so they just couldn't cope.
They're brilliant. I think it could be very interesting to see where De Zerbi takes his football in the future, because if he keeps going in this direction, I think big clubs will look at him. And like I said, it's unfair on clubs like Brighton, who are brilliant and are doing brilliant things. Let's talk about Man United just a little bit more, because it's not even Man United. We'll talk about Casemiro. In fact, I've gone to the wrong graphic. Let me go to this one first. So, I wanted to see where Casemiro's pass percentage compared to other DMs in the league. And the reason I wanted to do it is because I saw that Manchester United had 30-something% in the possession in the game against Brighton. I came away thinking, cool, we've actually on this show praised how Man United can concede possession and still get really big results under Ten Hag. He's shown a Mourinho-ness to kind of do that. But long term, they want to be a team that have the ball, that control games. You see that from what he's done at Ajax, and you see in the way Man United have played a lot of games this season as well. Now, Casemiro's pass percentage in the Premier League this season is 77%, is the worst amongst just some of the best DMs in the league this season. But I was getting so far in my list of DMs, I thought, let me just see where he compares to every DM. And it ain't good.
No.
Only Norgard, with 75%, has a lower pass completion of all starting DMs. Now look, sometimes it's Kamara for Douglas Luiz, sometimes it's other players.
Yeah.
But largely, for who's starting currently in that role for their team, he's got the second worst pass completion percentage, Casemiro. And I want to say it's a problem because he offers so much more experience, defensive ability, all that. But I think long term, he needs to up those numbers for Man United.
100%. I mean, if Ten Hag's going to play the way that everybody expects him to want to play in the coming years, once he gets the goalkeeper, once he gets the centre-backs, and, you know, he's not playing with Maguire, I'm not expecting Casemiro. I know that at Real Madrid, it was mainly funneled between Modric and Kroos, and Casemiro was kind of there, just kind of give it to them, so to speak. But against Sevilla, in particular, I'm seeing Casemiro messing up short passes. It's not like Casemiro is getting the short passes correct, and when he's playing the audacious passes that a Modric or a Kroos would play, that's when you're like, oh, okay, he can't do that. If anything, I've seen him play some really audacious passes and really good long ball, and you know. But when it comes to the short passing, the concentration is just not there. I don't know why his short passing game is so dodgy recently, and I think his form is definitely questionable in the recent matches. You know, there's been sending offs, there's been silly bookings, he just needs to get it together a little bit. He took the first penalty, he showed that leadership, he put it away, slotted it. He's a great player, but if you're going to play, if Ten Hag's going to play the way that we expect him to want to play, and I think that will heavily depend on the De Gea contract. If De Gea gets a renewal and he is the first choice goalkeeper next season, Manchester United and Ten Hag are not playing the way that they thought they would have played when he came in from Ajax.
Good point.
That's just not happening. Yeah. And that contract for me is going to determine whether Manchester United are going to play in a more pragmatic way, where they do sacrifice possession like we saw this season in games against Arsenal, Brighton, etc., or they're going to try and move towards that Dutch style of play. If they keep that goalkeeper, this doesn't even matter, because they won't be able to play that way. The way they played against Brighton was just there long, constantly, because they just saw what happened against Sevilla. It's not even worth the risk. But he does be one of them players that need to be stepping up in that position.
I completely agree. Partey with 87% completion rate there, Rodri 91, Guimaraes 83, Højbjerg, funnily enough, 89%, although I can't imagine he tries anything too outlandish on the ball, but look, fair enough. And there's so many, and I understand that it will be about system and it will be about
approach and
all that
instruction.
But my thing is that, okay, so what Premier League club doesn't have a midfielder that's getting over 80%? I mean, McKennie, Norgard. I think they're the only ones. Okay, Freuler. You know, it's not great when we're talking about Leeds, Forest, and okay, fair enough, Brentford having a good season. But I'm interested
But their style
to know,
of players, I don't think what Man United are looking to emulate. in future years.
I'd love to know what Man United fans think of this. Let us know in the comments section about not so much Casemiro's form, just whether long term Ten Hag's really going to get the football he wants. As you said, with Casemiro at a pass completion rate that's not good enough, but De Gea with the limitations he has. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah. Let's talk about. I want to talk about Leicester. Weird one. Because they've got to win. Yeah. Dean Smith's come in. I thought they showed a lot of heart against Man City. Again, they were 3-0 down. The kind of game was done, but they found a way kind of back into it.
Halves, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. And then I was scrolling through and I saw Leicester fans crediting Samare and his performance. Now, in the game, he ranked first for attacking third passes, first for take-ons as well, first for ball recovery, second for tackles, and first for interceptions. He played alongside Tielemans in a base 2. Now, this is a player that clubs are very excited about. You know, he was linked with a lot of clubs. Leicester got him. People thought, wow, they've already got Tielemans, Maddison, and Didi. Now they've added depth in Samara. They've got players like Dennis Pratt, Dewsbury Hall. Leicester's midfield is sorted. And it hasn't really happened for him in that sense. But I think Samara is a really interesting kind of case study on the overhype some players can get, and then how written off they can be so quickly, and then the answer's somewhere in the middle. He's a good player who just needs a good environment, right balance, and then he comes out with a really dominant midfield display. So fair play to him.
I think he was coming at a time where Leicester were starting to kind of fall a little bit. Ndidi's performances have really dropped off in that Leicester team as well. That's really not spoken about a lot. He was one of the best DMs in the league, Ndidi. Now he doesn't even get spoken about for a move to a top club. You know, his name's nowhere near it. We're talking about Lavia's, we're talking about Declan Rice's, we're talking about all of these guys, the Brighton guys. So I think for him, he's come in a grey area. He's a grey area, and he's come in a grey area for Leicester, where it's like they've got good players, but they're not actually on an upward trajectory. They may need to reshuffle the playing squad. Maybe there's a lack of motivation after missing out on top fours, etc. So he's come in a weird situation. But I think if you're rebuilding, you're rebuilding with him. You know, you're not rebuilding with Tielemans, who's, I think, contract's running out. Maddison's contract's running out. He is one of those players you're rebuilding, and I expect him to be there and them to put the midfield around him, and I think he'll be good for them.
The win for Leicester's taken them out of the bottom 3. Now we know there's a lot of football to play. We know they've been in really bad form as well. In fact, we were on this show and I was saying, well, if it is Rafa Benitez, I think they'll stay up. Dean Smith, look, I guess till the end of the season he can do a job. I don't think he's a bad manager. It's
not an inspiring appointment.
No, he did okay at Brentford. He did more than okay for Villa at a point, but then it fell away. And then at Norwich, I think he got a slight tune out of them, but there was kind of, I don't think there was.
I think so many teams down there have sacked managers. They just, when Leicester sacked, it was like, we don't actually have anyone left. There's no one outside of Rafa Benitez. It was kind of struggling for names. So he was one of the ones that came up. But there's, I mean, even Leeds, you know, former Watford manager, I think they have. It's not the most inspiring, hiring.
They almost just take it's a bit of a gamble. Well,
mix and
we
match.
know it didn't work for you there, and it didn't work for you there, but
because
maybe
Potters and Rodgers are not gonna swap Leicester's and Chelsea's for
maybe in the summer. Maybe in the summer when they hear a transfer budget and they see the players that are actually there for the long term. Sure. But I completely agree with you, and I stick with my shout that Southampton, Forest and Leeds are the ones that I think are going down. Any revised thoughts for you?
No, not at the moment. No. I'm sticking with those.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we've got to talk about the big game. It's Arsenal versus Manchester City, or should I say Man City versus Arsenal, because it is at the Etihad. Let me ask you, Matisse, as an outsider, because Arsenal fans, when we're kind of in our own kind of world, talking about tactics, approaches, blah, 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 sometimes we could run away with ideas. And sometimes from an outside perspective, you can go, hold on. Yes, this has happened, yes, that's happened, but you're going too far. What do you make of the Rob Holding debate and how Arsenal should then approach this Man City game? Because Arsenal need to win if they want to take back control of the title race.
I don't think Rob Holding is as big a conversation as it should be.
Or has been.
It has been. I just think it's obviously the clear drop-off with Saliba. I saw Ramsdale making a pass into the middle when Rob Holding was wide open. Is that a lack of trust? I don't know. I don't get it. He was literally right there on the right-hand side. He should have easily passed to him. I think Rob Holding comes in and he does a decent job. I think he gave away a penalty against West Ham. He isn't
Liverpool, but
Liverpool. He's not the level required for this situation that you're in right now, which is a title race, and especially going to Manchester City when you're going to go up against Erling Haaland. You don't need anybody in there who's not of the top level, during the season, who's not been performing to the top level, which is Saliba and Gabriel, going up against Haaland, who's literally on a way to break a record. But I don't think the conversation is really too much on just holding. I think it's, Ramsdale 28 seconds in, not concentrating. I think it's Zinchenko getting too heated and too involved in the emotions of the game and not really being able to be calm and not doing his own job. Because 2 of those goals were his fault against Southampton. The Theo Walcott run and the set piece where he's not marking the far post. That's him. That's not Rob Holding, that's Zinchenko. And that's obviously a player that's been performing, but right now he's losing his head. And I think Saka, playing him continuously throughout these games, maybe Trossard could have started. People will say for Vieira didn't really do anything. Odegaard did step up late on, did show that leadership, that captaincy.
Yeah, he did.
And if it wasn't for him, he probably wouldn't have won the game. Drawn the game. I think Lavia was a huge substitution. Once he came off, they conceded 2 goals in the final stages. He had an incredible game, and then they had to take him off maybe because he was struggling there. So personally, I do think Manchester City are in prime position to win this, purely because if we're talking about on a quality standpoint, Arsenal have been brilliant this season. If that Southampton game's played a few months ago, you sweep them. But I think mentally, these players it's starting to get to them, the pressure, the anxiety, whatever it is, they understand the magnitude of this fixture, and Manchester City, this is just another game for them. Yeah. And that's the difference. Man City players will be treating this like another game. They've been in this situation all the time, every single year, and they know what they're capable of and they know what they're doing. Their system, we spoke about earlier on in the season, them not really knowing their system, and they keep changing it, trying to find new, not anymore. They know exactly what they're doing now. And Arsenal, people are even talking about maybe the system change for Arsenal, because Zinchenko at left back,
that is what they're talking about.
That is such a gamble against Amaris that we just saw at the weekend get a hat-trick and on fine form.
Let me give you some of the solutions people are saying. That basically what you could do is move Zinchenko to wing back and basically have a back 3. Now the thing is, if you're asking me what I would do, I think this is the only good solution for Arsenal. Where actually you don't change the personnel, because this is clearly the group that Arteta trusts. Yeah. But what you do is you just tell White to tuck in next to Holding a little bit tighter. Yeah. And this is off the ball. So off the ball, Zinchenko, Saka's played right wing back for Arsenal actually quite a few times. And then you just get them to slot in nice and tight, compact 4, back 5. But when Arsenal do get the ball and they start to play, cool, Odegaard operates in these areas anyway. Saka just needs to overlap, and White is going to stay a little bit tucked into Holding, and you're going to build with your back 3.
It's a lot for Saka in terms of athleticism. He's going to have to really... It's going to be a lot of energy needed, because he's coming back into that wing-back role, and he's got to be the furthest forward in the attack on the right-hand side as well. That's the only concern I have, is whether Saka's got the legs for this, because he has been looking a little bit leggy in recent games. Partey needs to step up. Yeah. He has been poor as well. I forgot to mention him. But I think what's critical here is, do you go for Holding in the middle, or do you go... I mean, obviously, Gabriel being left-footed is maybe why you're keeping him in that position. People have spoken about Tierney maybe coming in. He's played left side centre back for Scotland in a back 3 quite a few times. Does he come in for Holding and maybe Gabriel go inside? I don't know.
So a lot of people, let's just call it how it is. There's a lot of people that don't want Rob Holding anywhere near this lineup. I think it's a little harsh, but I understand where we fall off when Rob Holding is playing compared to some of our more dynamic defenders. So some people are calling for this, for Kieran Tierney. Now, I don't mind it. I think defensively we'd be okay. Yeah. Something doesn't feel right about the balance. I don't know how to explain it. I'm thinking, well, Saka right wing back, but he's a right winger. Tierney left centre back, but he's more of a left wing back. And Zinchenko left wing back, but he does most of his best work when he comes inside. So the balance wouldn't feel totally right.
Is Zinchenko even in that position, or should he be in there for Xhaka? Because we've seen Zinchenko playing in that role so many times where he's basically next to Partey.
What do you do with Xhaka?
I just think your build-up play, I don't know if Xhaka can be trusted against City to build up. It depends on how you guys are going to play. I've seen Xhaka play as that lone pivot before, and not scan and then play it into Wood and away to Burnley. It's 1-0 or whatever it is, 1-1. So you're right. There's a lot of changes here that on paper it looks okay in terms of structure, but in terms of actual personnel in these positions, doing the roles and responsibilities that they have against a team of that magnitude, none of these guys are doing what they usually do. Gabriel is usually off to the left, playing those passes forward to Martinelli in that massive gap that is left, similar to Brighton from Matoma. You've got Zinchenko out in the wide position, who's usually central and dealing with the build-up play with Partey. You've got Saka doing a lot of running, and he's one of the players we've been questioning, is he even fit to even start, in terms of like, is he able to go through those 90 minutes and actually give you what Saka was giving you earlier on the season? There's been a little bit of a drop-off from him. It's tough. I think Arsenal... do they just go with what they've been doing? But then they've drawn 2-3 games in a row. You know, if you change the way you set up entirely, does that play into Manchester City's hands?
It's all about the message from Arteta as well, because if you start playing it around, there's a fine balance between the players going, nice, we've got a particular plan for this and we know what we've got to do, and also going, hold on, so you don't trust us basically. You're so scared of them that you're moving everything around just to accommodate for it. There's a really fine balance. Personally, I don't know. It's so difficult. I actually, you know what? Whatever Arteta does, unless he does something mad, whatever he does, I don't really think I'm going to have any complaints. I think I'm going to look at it and go.
I've even seen some people say Zinchenko in this game, maybe it's too much, because they're seeing him get so emotionally attached and heated, and now he's going to his former club. And
do you know what I would like about this setup? You know what I would like about it? Okay. Is that actually this could be off the ball. Saka, Zinchenko, wing backs, tight back three dynamic defenders, Gabriel at the heart of it where you want him. Tierney's done really well. He's actually done this role against Man City before. So in that sense, actually I could like that. But what you could do is on the ball, we talk about rotation, we talk about on the ball systems being different to off the ball systems. What you could do is then go, cool, when we've got the ball, Marte, you come wide, Xhaka, you move into your usual role, and Zinchenko, you come in to build from deep. So actually, then that starts to feel more like what Arsenal have been doing all season. So to be fair, that I wouldn't have a problem with. Actually, I've decided live on the show, that is what I would do. But if he goes for Tierney out, Gabriel, and then Rob Holding in,
you'd understand that too.
I would struggle. I'd struggle to be too mad. I understand that Holding has been a little bit of an issue. But here's the one thing I'll say about Holding, okay? In the Southampton game, when we conceded that second goal and the ball comes into Alcaraz, Holding's miles away. He actually drops expecting a pass, but then he doesn't react quickly enough to go in and then press and condense the space. But we're not going to be doing our defending that high up the pitch against Man City. I think we would have if we had Saliba fit and all that and we were in better form. I think we're going to be doing a lot of penalty box defending. And in that situation, Holding is pretty reliable. He's pretty reliable at just defending kind of, let's find it here, this area of the pitch. He's quite good at just winning his headers and going, cool, I'll deal with this, tight spaces, not commit too much, blah, 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 blah. So we'll see. It really depends.
I think what you have on there now is more closer to what Arsenal have been doing. It's just from the off, Zinchenko is in the middle, like Stones is for City. Before, City used to have Stones or Rico Lewis on the right back position, and then they would move in. From the get-go, you're just saying you're in there, regardless. And then Xhaka's coming in, making it a 3. So now you've got a 3 at the back and a 3 in midfield. You've got a compact 6 there. Because we know exactly what City's big threat is, which is in those tight spaces, in those central areas, those little combinations. So if you've just got 6 guys in there that are not moving, even if you wanted to get more defensive and just slot Xhaka in there, just for namesake, I don't know. But just in terms of off the ball, that's 6 people and they're just not moving. 6 people and they're just in there and they're just making sure they're patrolling all those central areas, because you know that Manchester City in those areas, when they do their little combinations and they get their little give and goes, that's when it becomes a problem. Just shove them out wide. And any crosses that come into the box, I'm afraid, you have to deal with them. You know, you've got 3 centre backs there on that graph. It's one aerial threat. You have to deal with those crosses. Shove them out wide, crosses come in, deal with them, and then go.
Arteta's had a plan this year when he's played these bigger games, away at Anfield, away at the Etihad in the Cup, and then at home against City at the Emirates. And the plan has always been man mark, all over the pitch, win your duels, and it's basically been I'm trusting my players to win their individual battle. So we're going to press them all over, and we're going to get high up the pitch, and we're going to rattle them. On the 3 occasions he's done it, at the Etihad, worked really well for an hour of the game, lost 1-0. Liverpool worked really well 40 minutes of the game, drew 2-2, having been 2-0 up. And then City at the Emirates as well. We played really well, but we lost 3-1. I think he might just take a step back and go, all right, the players know that's the long-term game. but we're just not ready for it just quite this season. Next season maybe. But I don't envy Arteta and the decisions he's got to make.
Before we close, Jorginho, experience, hasn't been used. Vieira was used, didn't really offer anything. Trossard, people say he should have started. Any Trossard and Jorginho are the only two players that are not in this conversation that maybe could be needed.
I think Trossard, if he starts, he absolutely deserves to. But I still don't think he's quite the right thing for what we're going to need and the few opportunities we're going to get against City. I think he's a great player to bring on when you need a goal with.
And Jorginho played that game against City as well.
And he did well in it. And he did well in it. He wasn't a problem. But again,
stick with Partey?
Yeah, I would stick with Partey. You know what? Could you do this? I'm not even joking.
Wow.
If you're talking about a physical battle and a man marking game against City all over the pitch, Partey's better equipped. But the reality is that then I think that's too lightweight in midfield. So. Yeah, listen, I don't envy it. On the Man City side, very quickly, they're going to do their thing. They're going to play their football. But I will make one prediction. And I could look so stupid saying this. I'm going to touch wood. I don't think it's going to be the first 20 minutes carnage from Arsenal or City's perspective. I think the way it's played out, I think City know they can try and patiently find a way through, and I think they will respect what Arsenal can do going the other way. So I think expect quite a boring first 20-30 minutes. That's just my opinion. If it is up and down, we could lose 5-0, we could win 3-1.
The problem
I don't think City want that lack of control.
The problem for Arsenal going into this game is a few weeks ago it was we can afford to lose here. Then it was we need to get a draw here. And now it's we need to win. And to come to this stadium and win, you have to be bold. We've seen Brentford come to the Etihad and win. They put the two physical strikers.
Stuck it on them. You're right. They stuck it on them.
They got very physical and they went for it. But this is not a team that you want to leave spacing behind because Haaland's there, and he's looking to break a goal record. And I think it's very purposeful that Pep's been taking him off and managing him and not letting him get his hat tricks here and there because he wants you to be fully charged and ready for this game. And this is the game where he can break the record. And
great, I didn't know
mentally,
that's brilliant.
This is the game where he can get the 33rd goal, isn't it? And it's like mentally, I'm already thinking Arsenal 1-0 down before the game's even kicked off because to keep a clean sheet at the Etihad with that guy up there doing what he's doing at the moment, forget about it.
Well, that's the task, Arsenal. That's the task. And look, we put ourselves in a good position, but this is, and listen, nothing's actually decided in this game, but each team can definitely put themselves in a really good position by 10 p.m. on Wednesday compared to the position they're in at 8 p.m. So let's see. Everyone, if you've enjoyed the show, we've covered lots of stuff from previewing this game tactically a little bit to everything we've covered from Man United, Casemiro, Brighton's playing out the back, Newcastle demolishing Spurs, and Leicester getting a much needed win as well. Matisse, thanks for joining. Go check out Matisse's channel. Go check out my channel. I never actually talk about it. I have a channel as well. Go check that out as well. I mentioned it a few times in this show. Subscribe to DR Sports if you haven't yet. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and we will be back next week to talk about this game and more. See you soon.